Canada is set to decommission obsolete equipment, and our new Chief of Defence takes over. This is the Grey White North Report. So Defence Minister Bill Blair said that the armed forces could soon bid farewell to obsolete ships, aircrafts, and weapon systems that become too difficult and costly to maintain. I'm all for that simply because the military needs money to buy new stuff, and it doesn't make sense to keep obsolete equipment that costs so much money to maintain and repair. Now, we are talking about the T-114 Tudor jet trainers, which are also known as the Snowbirds, and they're our acrobatic aerial team. And I didn't realize how old they were. I think they were built in the 60s and they're still flying today. So they've exceeded their service life and figured in a number of crashes. Despite receiving new avionics that could keep the plane serviceable in 2030, Blair said the Tudors are obviously well past their utility. When you look at a Super Bowl in the States or some major event, you see like the F-33s, the F-18s, you used to see F-14s, the Tomcats flying overhead, the F-15 Eagles. You saw military planes, not trainers. So I do think we should retire the Snowbirds and send them off to various aviation museums across Canada. We're going to retire vintage minesweepers for the maritime coastal defense vessels, but we need to replace those first, and we haven't yet. The ships are becoming increasingly expensive to maintain and staff, having been in service since the late 1990s. Also, the Canadian Navy announced it will replace its 4 Victoria-class submarines with 12 modern conventional attack submarines. I'll believe that when I see it. The Victoria-class were bought on the cheap by Paul Martin in the 90s and have cost much more than what we paid for in order to get them even seaworthy at the time. Now, General Wayne Eyre, who is the high-ranking Canadian military official, still examining whether it makes sense to take the assets out of service because it might take time to replace them. I'd put them in dry dock or in somewhere where they're still there. But it'll be up to the minister and his successor because he is stepping down. We'll get to that in a minute. So early this year, the Canadian military earmarked 13.78 billion Canadian dollars for new aircraft and logistics vehicles. We're also looking at a $3.6 billion contract last year for 9 multi-role tanker transport aircraft to replace what we have. So we're doing all this, but we're not doing it fast enough. We still have our frigates that aren't even being built, and those frigates we currently have are also built in the 1990s and have to be constantly refit. And we're going to have to use them into the 1930s. They're going to be 40 years old before we get the first frigate in the water. So there are lots of things we could retire, but we need to replace them. Buying them, making them ourselves and buying them from other countries would be the best way to do it, I think. Bit of half and half. That way we're not waiting for our own manufacturing sector. But we do need to modernize. So our new Chief of Defence Staff says Canada has 5 years to prepare for emerging threats. She's given a timeline. I love how they give timelines. So when General Jenny Carignan officially took over, following a change of command ceremony last Thursday, so this is almost a week ago, she said all the right things, I thought, and stated Canada has 5 years to prepare itself for emerging threats to its security. Now, she was asked if there's a risk of Canada being drawn into an armed conflict in the next 5 to 10 years. She didn't answer the question, but she did say the loss of Arctic ice cover and the development of new long-range weapons looks like emerging threats. So she didn't point fingers at anyone in particular, but we all know that how things are going lately. So she's given us 5 years to get our shit together and wake up. Canada is actively working with NORAD and NATO to prepare for such threats. And of course, they have to mention she's the first woman to be named to the Chief of Canada's Defence Staff. This is part of Trudeau's woke agenda. Equality and inclusiveness. It doesn't always mean that it's competent or it's always the best, but hopefully this lady does well. She has been in the military for a long time and she has worked her way up, so let's give her credit where credit's due. In fact, she's been in the service for 38 years. I do believe in an interview that she also pegged China and Russia as the biggest threats to Canada right now. And she's quite right. So she's given us the 5 years. Let's see where we are in 5 years from now. Hopefully things have gotten better. We should have some of the new fighters by then, and the frigates will be starting to be built, if not in the water. Also, we have the first time ever a woman is leading the Canadian Security Intelligence Services. Vanessa Loy will lead the intelligence agency for 6 months or until a new director is named. So the first time in a 40-year history, a woman will lead the Canadian Security Intelligence Service on an interim basis. Again, why does that matter to me? I would just like to hear that she's qualified, she's good. I don't need to know that she's the first woman. That's like, again, throwing that gender politics in our face. CBC is good for that. So this is part of the Trudeau woke agenda. You know how he loves to play gender politics. But we shall see. Hopefully she does a good job, better than the chick in the States who heads the Secret Service, who just resigned today after the Secret Service failed and the Republican nominee Trump almost got himself assassinated. So that chick's probably gone back to Pepsi and guarding Doritos. So also we have Melanie Joly, our foreign minister. She does a surprise visit to China. It's first by a Canadian foreign minister in 7 years. I don't see why we needed to do this, but Trudeau does love China. It should have been the Chinese coming to us. They should be begging us to take them back in, not us going to them. That's loss of face. That means we came to them as a supplicant, and we sent a woman too on top of that, which in a Chinese male-dominated society, we're already losing points. It's the first face-to-face talks in Beijing involving a Canadian foreign minister in nearly 7 years, thanks to the CCP pandemic and Kovrig and Spavor with Meng the Merciless Wanzhou, the fiasco. They want to repair deteriorating ties between the two countries. China is an economic mess right now with a ton of debt that they don't even know about. And it's probably the Canadian businesses who want to do business in China. They're pushing the Canadian government to do this. That and Trudeau's own love affair with China. That's not reciprocated by the CCP. You know, this is not a good thing. The Chinese have interfered in our elections over the past 12 years, if not more. And they also have secret police stations in Canada, and they monitor their own citizens or former citizens in our country. And yet we're giving them another chance. We do have short-term memory loss. So they want to discuss possible avenues for collaboration on common challenges and will exchange views on concrete ways to enhance the already deep ties between the people of Canada and China. No, there isn't. There's no deep ties anymore. I think she was sent because Trudeau's worried that he's going to have to deal with Trump again. And China is a nice balancing act. But they're also following Trudeau's concept of the Indo-Pacific strategy and maintaining open lines of communication used to diplomacy to challenge where we ought to, seeking cooperation areas that matter most to Canadians. Meanwhile, the Philippines is trying to get a deal with Canada where Canadians can actually go, the Canadian military can be sent to the Philippines and train there. And vice versa, the Philippines and Canada. That I like. The Philippines are having a hell of a time with the Chinese right now, down in the Scarborough Shoal area. I find the timing weird for this one, especially since we're mulling import tariffs on Chinese-made EVs after the U.S. did the same thing. If we allow Chinese electric vehicles to come to Canada, they're going to swamp us, and then we'll be dependent upon them instead of making our own homegrown or allying with the U.S. EV makers, and we make parts for them, kind of like our auto industry right now. Chinese EV vehicles are not known for their quality, and we would be wise to raise tariffs on Chinese EVs or completely block them. But if we do that, if we raise tariffs on those, then China might strike back, and they are not afraid of us. So I'm kind of surprised that Jolie went there, especially when we're mulling that. Again, Canada-China pledged to mend relations. So obviously she brought up Tibet, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and the Uyghurs plight, but China says those are internal affairs. So which means that Trudeau's warped sense of human rights when talking to China is not well received. And again, I would not make any deals with China, making a deal with the devil. China indicated willingness to explore opportunities to strengthen engagement on such issues as climate and the environment, curbing the fentanyl crisis, and working to improve trade relations. No, China does not care about the climate or the environment. They've already destroyed their own pretty much. And they are overfishing in many other countries by poaching. And they're trying to muscle other countries out of what's rightfully theirs. Hence the Scarborough Shoal incident. Trade, China needs us more than we need them. I, for one, do not need to buy off Temu. And when you have Chinese submarines in our Arctic Ocean, that's not a good thing. So I'm not all in favor of this. We are in a cold war with China, whether we like it or not. and we should face realities. But this is Trudeau we're talking about. He has no concept of foreign affairs. Once bitten, twice shy would be my motto. But anyway, all Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think of Canada's decision to scrap obsolete equipment. Will Canada be ready within 5 years? And should we reopen and expand our ties with communist China? Leave comments in the comment section. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report.